Hi everybody, Jordan Brill here. Today we're going to be installing this, an EVH Wolfgang bridge pickup, an EVH custom low friction potentiometer, and an EVH D-Tuna into this, a late 80s Kramer Classic II Telecaster. This is actually my dad's guitar. He's had it for about 25 years. What prompted this project was when I first got my EVH Frankie guitar and brought that over for my dad to check out. He really liked it and had a lot of fun playing it. He had commented while playing the Frankie how harmonic it was. You barely have to attempt to get any pinch harmonics out of the guitar, it almost does it naturally. So the Frankie has a very hot and harmonic pickup. He had said none of his guitars were this harmonic, and that's part of what was making the Frankie so fun to play. He also loved the idea of the D-Tuna being able to switch between drop D and standard tuning instantly. So this prompted the idea for me to get him the same pickup as the Frankie and a D-Tuna for his Kramer guitar. Alright, so before we swap the pickup out, I thought we would do a little bit of a playthrough to see what the stock pickups sound like on this guitar. So this is kind of an interesting guitar because instead of having a traditional pickup selector switch to switch between pickups, it has individual on-off switches for each pickup individually. So you've got one for the neck pickup, one for the middle, and one for the humbucker and the bridge. And on top of that, there's a three-way mini toggle switch for the humbucker that you can do humbucking or coil tap for both positions of both coils of the humbucker. I'm currently using my Fractal X-Effects as my guitar interface, and I'm using a bypass preset so there's no effects or no blocks in the chain. Here's what the neck pickup sounds like. Here's what the middle pickup sounds like. Now here's what the bridge humbucker sounds like. Now there is the three-way toggle for the coil splitting on the humbucker, but we've never really noticed much of it, and we're probably actually going to bypass that altogether when we put the EVH pickup in. So this is the humbucker position. This is coil tap position. And this is the other coil position. Here's them kind of switching back and forth fast so you can try to hear the difference between the different positions of that coil. Really, the only noticeable difference is when you go to the full humbucker mode, you can definitely hear more output, but I'm not really hearing much with either of the other two coils as far as what the difference is. So we've always used this guitar with the full humbucker mode, and we'll probably stay that way. The volume pot on this guitar is a little stiff and dirty too, so we're definitely going to change that out with that low friction pot. I always thought my guitars had decent pots on them until I got that EVH Frankie. I couldn't believe how fast and easy it was to spin that low friction pot on that guitar. So that's why I ordered one when I'm doing this project. I'm going to put that low friction pot in on this guitar, and there's a good chance I might change that out on all my other guitars as well, because it really is a very fast and smooth control. Alright, now I'm using a high gain preset on my Fractal, and we'll go through the stock pickups positions once again. This is the neck position with high gain. This is the body position, middle position, with high gain. And now I'll go to the humbucker. And the coil splits. Once again, you can't really tell the difference between using coil splits or the full humbucker, so when we put the EVH pickup in, we're probably going to wire it with just the full humbucker mode, bypass this switch altogether, and just use it as a straight humbucker. The point of this pickup swap was to get better harmonics out of this guitar. So let's go through and play some pinch harmonics on this guitar in the humbucker position. They're there, but they don't last very long, and they're pretty subtle. So that's it for the stock pickups. Let's go through and change out these electronics. Alright, so I have the guitar laid out on my guitar mat. I have all my tools and parts here. I've got just a interchangeable screwdriver. I've got a Floyd Rose tremolo intonation tool, a spring tool, a Allen wrench for the Floyd Rose, a couple different sets of pliers, a couple different kinds of flux, soldering, solder wick, and a soldering iron for when I'm doing the electronics, string winder, tuner, steel wool in case I need it. I've got the D-Tuna, the potentiometer, the pickup, and a new whammy bar. This guitar was second hand to us, so we never actually had a whammy bar for it, so new bar for the tremolo. So let's get going and we'll start working on this guitar. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the strings and the back covers, and I'm going to start speeding up some of these processes so you don't have to sit and wait and watch me do all this in slow motion. So stand by. Alright, so here's the back of the guitar. The cavity is filled with some springs, so I'll have to remove a couple of those. That'll be easy to do. We're going to remove the old volume pot. We're going to snip off the wires from this old three-way toggle for the humbucker, and we're going to bypass that. We're going to reuse the same existing toggle for the humbucker, wire the new humbucker up to that. So first thing we need to do is desolder and get these old parts out of here. And we're going to take out the bridge pickup and see what we're working with in that cavity. I want to solid wood mount that pickup directly to the body of the guitar. I have a lot of my other guitars that are that way, and I feel that that's the best way to get some tonal response out of your pickups with the guitar, when it has direct contact with the body. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll check it out next. Alright, so the pickup is out. It's not very deep, which is good if we want to body mount this pickup, but there are a couple of deep pockets there for the adjustment screws, so we might need to fill those up with something. We'll have to take a look, see what we have. the volume pot is, or if the pickup is out, everything is removed. Let's take a look at see what we have to deal with the new pickup. So it comes in this little gift wrap bag, basically. Nice box. Pretty plain Jane packaging on the inside, just the single pickup. And I was aware that these wires were already terminated this way. So there's 4 conductors on a humbucker pickup, and you can see the 4 wires here. But they have already taken and shunted the green and white wires together, so you only have your ground and your output pickup, basically, or your output wire ready for available on this pickup. So that's all those are the only 2 things you need to solder. That's also the reason why we were going to bypass the additional coil tap or coil splitting switch and just run this as a full humbucker mode, because I don't want to, not a big deal, but I don't want to have to undo that and readjust that. What else did they include in this? Anything? Just the wiring diagram. It does already say in here, if I can zoom up on that, that the green and white wires are already soldered and shrink wrapped together. And they give you a little bag of the adjustment springs and screws. Would have been nice if they would have given you some screws to use to body mount the pickup like they do on the Frankenstein or the Frankie or the Wolf models guitars. But I do have some wood screws or some sheet metal screws to use to try to screw that in anyways. So let's see what we have to work with now. Alright, so I got a little bit of an update for you. I have the stock pickup out of the guitar. It is pretty plain Jane. It's pretty weathered looking. There's no markings on it, so I have no idea what it is. I'm guessing it's just a generic pickup. It's actually kind of heavy, but we're going to swap it out anyways because we want to try to get some better tone out of this guitar. What my plan was is I wanted to solid body mount the pickup to this guitar. But with no shim or bracing, it's a little too low and it's not going to work. So what I wanted to do is make a wood shim to try to keep as much wood-on-wood contact with the pickup and the body to try to keep as much tone as we can. And with this shim, the pickup ends up sitting a little too high and it's almost touching the string. So my concern is if I file or shave this shim down a little bit more, it's not very thick to begin with, but if I shave it down a little bit more, I have a feeling that if I drill or screw through it, it might split or crack, and then it kind of defeats the purpose. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to use this humbucker base plate. You can find these online. This was $8 online. And what we're going to do is we're going to mount this directly to the body of the guitar. This way we have a nice solid contact between this mount and the body of the guitar. Then we are going to put some foam in between, some dense foam in between the pickup and this base plate to try to keep as much mass as we can, and we will put the pickup in there and we will use the adjustment screws to adjust the height as needed. But that way we still have solid contact with the body and the pickup, and there'll be a dense mass to try to keep as much tone as we can through the body of the guitar. Alright, so I've got the humbucker mounting plate mounted to the body of the guitar. I'm using 4 number 6 sheet metal stainless steel screws to screw the base plate to the body of the guitar. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take, this is just regular household weather stripping like you can use on doors and windows. We're going to cut a couple small strips off. We're going to stick them to the back of the pickup. This way we have a little bit of cushion and something that will help push the pickup against this base plate, give us a little bit extra mass. We're going to use the traditional height adjustment screws to screw through the Wolfgang pickup into that metal base plate, so it's going directly to the body of the guitar. It's solid mounted. Doing a couple of dry runs, this pickup is very solid mount into that body of the guitar then, so I'm going to be very happy with that result. This is the height adjustment screw that comes with the Wolfgang pickup, as you can see threaded into the base plate of the Wolfgang pickup. We need to file the tops of these threads down underneath the screw head, so that way this can get screwed all the way in to the bottom of that screw head, and then it can spin freely so we don't have any binding when we screw these threads into the base plate of that bracket that we mounted into the body of the guitar. To file these threads down, insert the screw into a drill, and we'll use the drill as a lathe. As the screw starts spinning, we'll take a small file, this is a fret dress file, and start filing and grinding those threads off underneath the base of the screw head. This height adjustment screw is now too long for our needs, so we're going to take a Dremel and cut it about halfway down. Here is the finished product before installation. Screws are all the way in and have been trimmed. The threads have been removed so they can spin freely on that barrel. The weather stripping foam has been added for a compression and a spring to push the pickup up against the threads, pulling the pickup down. Time to install the pickup. That pickup is installed. Look at how nice and secure and snug it is, no movement at all. Now all that tone from the wood will come up into the pickup, and we can even fit the trim ring on for cosmetics. Okay, so we're done with our pickup mounting. Now we can work on the electronics. So this is the mini toggle on-off that we're going to be wiring the red wire of the Frankie pickup to. These are the two on-offs for the single coils. There's a solid wire that's going between them as the output that'll go to the input of the volume pot. This is the old three-way toggle that was used for the coil splitting on the old humbucker. We are bypassing that. This won't even be hooked up at all, but we're keeping it in there just so there's not a hole on the front of the guitar. We're going to take out the old factory or stock volume pot, and we're going to put in our low friction volume pot. This is the new humbucker wire. This is the output jack wire, and that should be it. Let's get to soldering. A little tip I had received in working with new volume pots or new control pots. Usually there's a little bit of oil or grease or something that's on the outside of these the chassis. We do need to solder to that for our ground. So to kind of rough up the surface and remove some of that oil or grease that's on there, just use some steel wool. Kind of rough that up, those edges up a little bit, just so when you're using your solder it has something to stick to. I might need some more wire to make some new pigtails for my electronics. So I'm just using some scrap wire from an old computer power supply. Always use flex when soldering. Two kinds of flux. I've got a paste and I've got a little bit of a liquid flux to use as well. Okay, so all wiring is done. The wire from the humbucker pickup comes in, the red wire goes to the pickup selector switch, black, which is ground, comes all the way to the volume pot. The ground from the single coil pickups and the bridge claw are all pigtailed together and soldered to the back of the pot. The other pickup selector switches were unmodified, so everything goes straight through to the input of the new volume pot. Output of the volume pot to the jack. I did change the wire. The old one was a little thin and kind of falling apart, so I changed that out. The additional 3-way toggle switch that was used for the coil split is no longer used. It's all bypassed. We're good to go. To get the whammy bar active, we need to remove a couple of these springs in the back. This should be real easy because I already have my spring pull tool. Try with 2 removed. Make sure it still stays in tune. The person who had this guitar before us loaded up the spring cavity full of springs. I had already removed 2 to start lightening the load and reduce the tension so I could see how that feels with the strings and trying to use the tremolo. The person who had this before us also put in a metal plate in here, which looks like a neck plate from a guitar, used as a stop plate so the bridge can only go back so far and it's not fully floating. It's in dive mode only. So on any guitar that's got a tremolo and has springs in the back, sometimes when you hit the guitar and choke it, you can still kind of hear like a reverb going on with the guitar. I don't know if this mic will pick it up, but it's there. What that is that's actually these springs in the back that are vibrating. What we're going to do is we're going to take some of this weather stripping, put a couple strips on this back plate before we reinstall the cover, and then that's going to act like a mute to cut the ringing of those springs. Like this. A couple pieces of that weather stripping on the back of this back plate. When you reinstall this, now it acts like a mute and those springs won't ring. No more ringing. Last thing we need to do for this guitar is install the D-Tuna. To install the D-Tuna is actually a pretty easy process. Just lower the low E string until it's completely loose. Then we are going to remove the bolt on the low E string. All the way out. Then with the D-Tuna, we're going to start with the shorter of the 2 bolts. It's a little bit longer than the factory bolt. We install this little spring. And slip on the D-Tuna. We'll pull out this recessed screw, not all the way, just to loosen it up a little bit. Loosen that set screw just a little bit. And then we'll reinsert into that saddle. Loosen the low E fine tuner too, all the way. Once the string is locked back in place, slightly push down and pull out the D-Tuna back. This is in the D position. Tune the string to D. So now it's drop D tuning. Then when you push it in, how far is it from E? So it's a little flat. Push the D-Tuna out. Give that set screw, let's give it a half turn. We'll give it a full turn. Push the D-Tuna back in. Still flat. Pull the D-Tuna out. Let's give that another half turn. Push the D-Tuna back in. Still a little flat. Just repeat this process. Quarter turn. Almost there. We're going to go slightly smaller turn now. Push down and push the D-Tuna back in. Still a little flat. We're down into micro turns now, just barely. Still just a hair flat. Now it's an E. Push down, pull out. D. Push down, push in. Back to E. As simple as that. I'll need to get a new knob. The center of this one is a little bit smaller than the shaft on the new EVH control. So we're going to need to get a new knob in order for that to fit. Otherwise, let's go give it a listen. Alright, so here we are back in the studio with all the guitar modifications done. The single coil pickups and switches are all the same, so I don't need to replay through those. The only thing that's changed is the humbucker and the volume pot. So here we are again with the bypass preset so we can hear the clean, raw guitar. And even without having a knob on the volume control, it's actually pretty easy to use since it's so low friction. So here's the high gain preset of the humbucker pickup. Now what we're really here for. Let's get to some pinch harmonics. Screams pretty good. I love that harmonic. And the D-Tuna, go from E to D. And back to E. This guitar really screams now. Alright, so that's it for me today. Thanks for tuning in, watching me unbox, install, and demo these EVH products. These are some of my favorites, so that's why I use them on my own guitars. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more.